I told God this was my last time when I know it ain't my last time, but I'm praying.
Man, what is up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sports Spliffs and Politics. My name is AJ Sharp, and before I dive into the episode, I just wanted to give a big thank you to everyone that showed such immense support for me on my first video and realistically showed me so much support throughout this entire process. It really does mean a lot, and this is honestly what keeps me going, keeps me motivated. So just want to take a brief moment at the beginning of the video to shout all of you out. So in today's video, what we're going to be doing is taking a deep dive into my case. What I hope to do is paint the picture as vividly as I can for you guys so you guys can see what it looked like, understand what happened, what the process looked like. I have some testimony from my preliminary hearing. I have some summaries from witness statements that were given, and just a bunch of different documents from the evidence from my case to really show you guys why I was acquitted. You know, there's a lot of speculation out there surrounding my case as to what really happened. A lot of different rumors and things of that nature. I've heard it all. And what I'm gonna show you guys is, you know, direct witness statements, direct testimony, and you guys will understand why I was acquitted. And realistically, you understand what I had to go through as well, and how, you know, just all the things that were stacked against me, and why it was so easy and so clear for a jury to see that I was not guilty. So before I get into the story, I first have to explain who I was at the time, for those of you who don't know me. So at the time, I was in my 4th year out of 5 of college. I attended Carleton University. I was very active on campus. I was president of the Black Student Union. I was captain of the men's basketball team. And I was just living your typical college student life. I was involved in a lot of extracurricular activities on campus. And on the day of the incident, I was in North Canton, Ohio. I was on the second day of a back-to-back. We played Tiffin, and then we played Walsh University on the day of the incident, Thanksgiving Eve. And our game was scheduled for 12 p.m. So we played our game at 12, got done and on the bus around 1:30. When I got onto the bus, that's when conversations started amongst myself and my friends as to what we were going to do that night. We didn't really have any plans concrete. We just knew that we were going to be doing something. So my friends kind of just told me, hey, just text us when you're back in Jeanette. And we kind of figure it out from there. So the bus takes us from Ohio, Walsh University, back to campus in Pittsburgh. I go to my dorm room with my roommate, talk a little bit with him, pack my stuff up, pack my car up, hit the road, and I get back to my house around 6 p.m. Now, when I get to my house, talk to my parents, eat some food, shower up, get ready, and then I head over to my friend's house. When I get to my friend's house, we still were kind of up in the air about what we were going to do, but we later decided that we'd get picked up by another friend of ours and head to Hugo's. It's another bar in Greensburg. Now, at Hugo's is when I first interact with the alleged victim in my case. Now, it's important to establish that the alleged victim in my case was not just some random guy. I knew this guy extremely well. I've known him for almost my whole life. He dated my sister for about 5 years, the entirety of their high school careers. They were dating. And then they broke up when my sister was about a freshman in college. Wasn't anything, no bad blood. They just went their separate ways, and that's what it was. There was never any bad blood between myself and him. And that's important to establish because the prosecution, what they tried to do is give me a motive. So why is that important? Because if they're able to establish a motive for me, then that diminishes my case for self-defense, because they're then able to say AJ did this not because he was trying to defend himself, but he was trying to provoke a fight with him because he was mad at him for how he treated his sister, or, you know, X, Y, and Z. And that just wasn't the case. And it was hard for them to prove it. They couldn't really, because there was no evidence of that. But they most certainly tried. So I see him at Hugo's in passing. He walks up. we exchange pleasantries. How you doing? We shake each other's hands, dap each other up, whatever you want to call it. Um, have simple conversations, simple small talk, and we both went our separate ways, and that was the end of it. And that was the last I saw him until the incident. So after being at Hugo's for about an hour and a half, me and my friends decide that we were going to go to Rialto. So Rialto is only about a block away. So we leave Hugo's, walk over to Rialto, and I explained in my last video the setup of the Rialto. And it's important to understand the setup. So we first walk in, there's only one entrance, but there's multiple ways to exit the bar. So we walk in, we are on the first level of the bar. And we spend about 20 minutes here, 30 minutes here, not real long. Um, the individual who drove us to Hugo's, he informs us that he wanted to go to casino, so he left and went to the casino. We decided that we are going to stay at the Rialto, and we decided that we wanted to go up to the third level. So we're on the first level. To get to the third level, you have to go to the second level. It's like an outside patio area, and then there's steps that take you to the third level. This is like the dance club area. That's where they had the DJ and things of that nature. The lights are off, strobe lights, that kind of scene. So we get up there and it's just a typical night. We're not on the dance floor, we're not dancing or anything. Me and my friends are just sitting at the bar for probably an hour and some change. We're just hanging out, just having a good time. And it gets to about 1 o'clock, 1:30ish, in between that time period, and we decide that we want to do something else with our night. So we were unsure at the time whether we wanted to go to the casino or if we wanted to go back to Jeanette. But the thing is, we had to kind of make a decision soon because we had to Uber to wherever we had to go to because our ride left. So we ultimately decide that we're just going to say our goodbyes to, the friends that were at the Rialto, kind of head outside and figure it out from there. So as we're getting ready to leave, saying byes, I see somebody who I went to high school with at Greensburg. And I know I got into this in the last video, but I just want to rehash it so you guys fully understand the big picture. So after seeing her, I walked over to her. I say, "What's up?" And I ask her about her ex, informs me that she's not dating her ex anymore, that she had a new boyfriend. We talked about school for a little bit, simple small talk. And while we're talking, Joey interjects himself in between us, moves her out the way, and is now standing toe to toe with me. Now, this is important because I'm going to read the statements given by his brother as to how the fight started. So, first, I'm going to read Joey's brother's statement as to why this altercation started on the inside. So, Joey's brother says, at some point while at the Rialto, they observed AJ speaking with another friend who was identified as, I'm not going to say her name. It was Joey's brother's impression that the female did not want to be talking with AJ, but he would not leave her alone. At some point, Joey intervened and got between Lizzie and AJ, and Lizzie left. Nico recalled seeing AJ laughing or smirking and didn't think the situation was serious. However, he then observed AJ punch Joey and Joey headbutt AJ. He believed AJ punched first but could not be sure. Now, it would later be admitted that Joey headbutted me first. Joey did that at his own admission, when talking to the police. And it's interesting to see the statement given by the female who I was speaking to, because of course they had to speak to her. Okay, now let's read the statement given by the female that I was talking to. So the female stated she does not remember seeing Anthony Sharp at Hugo's. She did recall AJ talking to her at the Rialto. She stated the conversation was brief and he asked her if she was still dating her ex-boyfriend. She stated she didn't mind talking to AJ and wasn't asking for help and doesn't feel that she looked distressed. Now, this is important because they tried painting this picture that I was harassing this young lady and that Joey was just this knight in shining armor coming to save the day and intervene because I was harassing her and wouldn't leave her alone. And this is just when the lies start, because they understand that their friend Joey was extremely intoxicated, intervened because he was looking to pick a fight, and that's exactly what he did. And I was standing there laughing, smirking, because I couldn't even believe that he was this angry at me because I didn't understand why. And I know him so well, it all just didn't make sense to me. So Joey headbutts me in my face to continue with the story. I stumble back and an altercation ensues. But it's not really a fight, like I said in my last video. It's more like a skirmish. Bodies are everywhere, people are pushing, people are shoving, and ultimately we end up getting separated from each other. Now, at this point, the bouncers are ushering us out. So they're ushering us out from the third level down to the patio to exit. Like I told you guys in my last video, halfway down the steps, I realized I had forgotten my shoe. I turn back around, walk up the steps, go get my shoe, talk to some friends, and then I leave. I wish I had this video for you guys of Joey on the patio waiting for me and getting dragged out by his friends. And then you guys would be able to see exactly how much time passed from the moment he reached the patio and had the opportunity to leave until I got to the patio and would eventually leave. And because there's only two videos that came into play in my case. It was that video and the video that I will show you of the off-duty state trooper pulling Joey off of me. And you'll see why both of those came into play. More importantly, because they were trying to say that I was following Joey out, and that just wasn't true. And I'll get to Nico's testimony of that in a second as well. The testimony he gave at the prelim. But to continue with the story, I go back, get my shoe, leave with some friends, get out onto the sidewalk, and that's when I noticed that Joey was waiting for me. Now, when I get to the sidewalk, I'm standing behind my friends, and it's obvious that Joey is still trying to continue the altercation. Me and my friends are just telling him to just go ahead. You know, we don't want any problems. Like, we're just trying to continue on with our night. We don't care. We're not trying to sit here and fight. This dude's obviously drunk and he's just acting erratic. And, you know, talking to my friends didn't know this guy. They had no idea who he was. I knew who he was. And to them, it was just some random drunk guy. But to me, it's a guy that I know very well. And I'm confused as to why he's acting like that. And I was out there, you can tell I was just visibly confused. So I'm on the sidewalk, Joey's on the street, and at that point, I say, I'm just gonna call my mom because we're looking for Ubers and have her come pick us up. And before I could even unlock my phone, Joey charges at me, and before I could even react, he picks me up, slams me down to the concrete, and I just remember hitting the back of my head off the concrete so hard. And he's on top of me. His head's like at my chest area, and I remember coming to. It's almost like when you stand up too fast and you get vertigo, and it's black, and then the light just starts to kind of come back to. That's how it was for me. So at that moment, I'm saying to myself, like, I just have to get up and get away from him so I can recollect myself. So like I said, his head's about at my chest area. So I'm able to, turn over to my hands and knees and push myself up. And that's when I see my pocket knife on the ground, pick it up, and now he's around my waist. He takes me back to the building because he's trying to take me down again to the ground, like I explained in the last video. But the building was right there because, I only made it a few steps out, and he's around my waist now. And I remember just saying, someone get him off me, someone get him off me. And he spins me off the wall. Now he slams me back down to the concrete on the street. And at this time, he has me in a chokehold. So at this moment, I felt I needed to do what I had to do to defend myself, because this second time I hit the ground, I just knew I was in trouble. So I had to do what I had to do to defend myself. And, like I said in my last video, witnesses described me as, flailing or swimming. And a lot of people didn't even know that Joey was being stabbed because of just how my movements were. So, from my perspective at the time, it ends up getting broken up, obviously, and I wasn't sure how it got broken up, but I know it did, and hindsight now tells me that how it got broken up because I was able to see the video. I was able to you know hear what my friends who witnessed it had to say, and now I know, but at the time I had no clue. So I remember just getting up, everything coming to, and that's when I start to realize what happened. And the scene was just chaotic. People were yelling, people were screaming, there's people in my face telling me to do this, do that. And I just knew what I couldn't do is I couldn't run away because then I'd look guilty. So I stayed on the scene. I went over to Joey because he was across the street, and I checked. I wanted to make sure he was okay because I mean, at the end of the day, I didn't want to do that, but he put me in a position where I feared for my life. I feared serious bodily injury. So therefore, I had to do what I felt was necessary to make it out of there in one piece. And I went over there and checked to make sure he was okay. I talked to a couple of his friends, a couple of my friends too, or ex-friends, I should say, and waited there until I got arrested. So I kind of want to backpedal a little bit and talk about a witness that saw the entire altercation happen. It was one of Joey's friends, and I want to read to you guys what she said in her police interview. And it's important because as I read these statements, you'll start to see not only the inconsistencies, but you'll start to see how they were trying to formulate this narrative against me. So this female was outside whenever I got outside, and she was holding Joey back from coming onto the sidewalk to continue the altercation. And her testimony is important because she saw the whole thing happen. I told the police that night that she saw the entire thing happen, and this is what she had to say. The female stated that one of Joey's friends was inside trying to find paper towels to give Joey because he was bleeding from his nose. The female stated that she and Joey's brother were walking Joey on South Pennsylvania Avenue away from the bar to get him home. The female stated that as they were walking, Joey's brother noticed that Anthony and his friends were following them. Now I want to stop there because I want to say that's already debunked by the second video, the one I don't have, because it clearly shows that I did not follow them outside. And I wish I could show you guys so you guys could see how much time passed before I went outside and how much time passed between them reaching the street and me reaching the street, because it was a lot of time. But to continue, the female stated that one of Anthony's friends yelled out to Joey, stating, "If he gets up on this sidewalk, AJ is going to beat him up." The female stated at this time she approached Anthony and told him that they were all leaving. The female stated she attempted to calm the situation down since she knew both Joey and Anthony. The female stated that when she approached Anthony, she noticed that his friends were blocking him. The female stated that Anthony was behind his friends and could not figure out why they were standing in front of him. Well, maybe because we didn't want an altercation. We were trying to leave and continue on with our night. Maybe that's why, and your friend was out of line, but let me continue. The female stated that while she was attempting to speak with Anthony, Joseph must have walked over to the sidewalk. The female stated that Joseph and Anthony started to fight again. So, must have walked over to the sidewalk. So just keep in mind how I'm saying this. Just keep my story in mind. And when you read these statements, you can just tell that it's a bunch of friends trying to protect a friend. I mean, he must have walked over. That's ridiculous. Let's just be fair. She knew exactly how that fight started. She knew exactly what happened. She's just trying to protect a friend. And the police didn't do their job of interviewing more than just Joey's friends to figure out what exactly happened that night. And that's what makes me mad about what happened with my case. I never once was mad that an investigation had to take place. I was mad that they never even gave me a chance from the start. They never even gave me a chance. They never even entertained the idea that maybe, just maybe, I was acting in self-defense. They went, talked to all of the friends, and they found the narrative that they wanted to push, and that's what they went and did. They pushed that narrative until the wheels fell off, and they did. To kind of pick up where I left off at, the cops come, they arrest me, they put me in a cop car, and I remember, my family now, my parents are now on the scene. I'm in the back of a cop car, and I remember just telling them, like, it was self-defense. It was self-defense. I promise. They come, and my friend gives me all my items, the rest of my items that were on the street from when he first tackled me down to the concrete, gave me those items, and the police car took me to the police station where I gave my interview, or I gave my statement. And I'm not going to read my whole statement summary to you guys because I just told you it's verbatim. I mean, there's not a thing different from what I'm telling you to what's in here. And that's ultimately would also lead to my acquittal, is that my story never changed. From this night, from what I told the police until I got up on that stand at trial, my story never once changed. There was nothing that I had to change or nothing that I had to leave out. I told my story the same. So I get to the police station, I give them my statement, and at this moment, I'm still believing that I was gonna go home. In the back of my mind, I'm like, worst case scenario, I'm going to spend the weekend in jail, and then I'll be out. So I get there. It's around 3:00. After I get there and give my statement, and I'm handcuffed to this bench for hours. I mean, I was there for a long time, and they take pictures of me. They take all my clothes, put me in like this mesh jumpsuit, and around like 8:00 ish, 7:00 maybe, police officer comes in, tells me to come on. He handcuffs me, puts me in the back of a cop car, and at that point, I realize, oh, I'm going to jail. So I get to jail, walk in, go through booking, and I'm just in boxers. That's all I'm in. And I didn't really realize why I was just in boxers. I was thinking, maybe I get to my cell, they'll give me some clothes. So at this point, I'm talking to, I can't remember if it was before I'm in the boxers or when I'm still in the mesh jumpsuit, but I sit in front of a judge, and this is on the computer, and this is the first time I'm hearing my charges. I had no idea what I was being charged with up until this point. So I'm sitting in front of this judge, and God bless, I knew a CO in there, God bless him, and he's standing behind me, and he tried to give me a warning, like, listen, they're going to throw a bunch of numbers at you, don't worry, like, those numbers aren't necessarily true. So, and I didn't really know what he meant by that yet. I don't know this process. So I'm sitting in front of the judge, and she starts reading me off my charges, and she's telling me, my lead charge is attempted murder in the first degree, faces a maximum of 40 years in prison. And at this point, I can't believe it. Like, I almost start losing my mind. Like, you're telling me I'm looking at 40 years in prison, and that's just the start of it. So the CO puts his hand on my shoulder. He was like, just stay calm. Remember what I told you. So I said, okay. I had to tell her I understood my charge. She reads the next charge, aggravated assault, maximum of 20 years in prison. Do I understand my charges? I said yes. Reads me my next charge, reckless endangerment. It was like 5 years in prison max. Do you understand the charge? Yes. And then she tells me, do you understand you're facing X amount of years in prison? And I tell her yes. And this is when I start realizing, like, this is going to be a battle. Like, I start realizing this is going to be a fight. for my life, really. And that's what it was, and that's what it would end up being. So I finally get into a room and I'm finally able to make a phone call to my parents, just because I knew this CO. Brief phone call, just tell them, they tell me, they're going to get me out of there. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. And phone call ends. I get transferred to another CO and they're taking me to the block in my cell that I'm going to be on. So at this point, like I said, I'm in this makeshift boxers. I'm still covered in my blood and Joey's. And I get to my block, open my cell door, and then they shut the door and I'm in suicide. So basically, it's explained that I have to go in suicide because of my charges. So since my charges were the severity that they were, I had to go into suicide watch. So basically, what suicide watch is, all I had was those boxers. I had this suicide prevention blanket that's like this Velcro. I had these Crocs, and that was it. I didn't get to shower. I didn't have a toothbrush. I didn't have soap. I didn't have pencil or pens or paper. I had nothing. And I remember just getting to the room and they shut the cell door. And at this point, it's really starting to sink in. And that's when I really am starting to spiral. On top of that, just the emotional aspect of it, I'm nauseous and I'm vomiting and I'm gagging. And I realize I probably have a concussion from hitting my head off the concrete. So by the cell door, there's a little button that you can push that rings the CO desk. So I remember just going up and pushing the button, and the CO comes to the door and he's like, what's the problem? I'm like, listen, I need to go see a nurse or something. Like, I'm here throwing up. Like, I'm nauseous. I'm gagging. Like, I think I have a concussion. And he's like, okay, well, I'll make a note and we can see what we can do. Well, a couple hours pass. Nothing's happening. I go push the button again. He comes up. I'm like, can I go see a nurse or something? And he's like, there's no nurse around. Like, I put in an order. I can't really do anything about it right now. And I'm like, what? And he kind of just walks away. And I go back to my bunk. And shortly after I start pushing the button and pushing the button and pushing the button again. And I realized he turned my button off because I was pushing it so much. So now it's not even ringing to the CO desk. So, kind of wrap it up and get to the next points because I don't want to make this video too long. I eventually was allowed out of suicide and went to my own cell, and I knew the next week I would have my preliminary hearing. So I still don't know much about what's going on the outside. And I remember waking up my second day in there, and that CO that I knew, he came and visited me almost every single day. He would come in my cell and visit. And I remember that second day he walked in and he's like, yo, what's up, AJ? How you doing? I'm like, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. And I could just tell he was distraught. And I remember asking him, like, what's wrong? And he's like, he looks around and he shuts my cell door till there's probably like an inch opening. He couldn't shut it all the way because then it'd lock. So he cracks it and he's like, dude, you gotta be effing honest. What happened? And I'm like, what do you mean? He was like, what happened that night? And I was like, I'm like, why? Like, why are you asking me that? And he was like, because they're trying to say like you followed him out and that you just started stabbing him in his back. And that, that's what the news report's saying. That's what the articles are saying. And that's the narrative that they're trying to push. And my stomach flipped upside down. My heart sank, like just the worst feeling you could feel. Because at that point is when I really realized like these guys are really going for it. Like they're about to just lie and just try and bury me. So I remember telling him what happened, and he's good friend and he knows these friends that I were out with as well. So he listens to what I said. I tell him the whole story, and he's like, all right, well, if that's what you say has happened, then we're just gonna have to wait and see. So, I'm all worked up now. And, a couple days later, he comes back in. He was like, listen, I talked to your friends and they gave me the same story verbatim. He was like, I talked to them individually, even not even together. I pulled one out of the room, talked to him, pulled another one out, talked to him, and your stories are the same. And that's important too because I'm in jail. I didn't have time to come up with this story as to what happened. When in reality, these guys, they didn't get interviewed, some of them for a week after, and that pisses me off even more because how can you charge me and throw me in jail and you didn't even do a damn investigation? You didn't even interview people and you already charged me with attempted murder at that. We're not talking about simple charges. We're talking about attempted murder, aggravated assault, 2 F1 felonies. It's a week now from the incident. I'm still in jail. I've been in there for 7 days now, obviously, held without bond. And my attorney advises me, he tells me that the whole point of the preliminary hearing for me is to try and get me bond. Now, the point of the preliminary hearing for the prosecution is to determine if there's enough evidence to move forward with the case. So the job for the of the prosecutor is to show that there's enough evidence to move forward with this case. And she presents that to the judge, and the judge ultimately decides that. So during the preliminary hearing, she called 3 witnesses. She called Joey's dad, Joey's brother, and Detective Scalzo, the one of the detectives involved in my case, the detective that did the interview with me the night of. So I just want to read some excerpts from this so that you guys can hear what was going on and kind of see what was going on, kind of take you into the courtroom and show you the questions that are being asked. So the prosecutor asks how the fight starts, and Joey's brother responds by saying, I couldn't really see what they were saying. I don't know who threw the first punch or what. Already different from what he told Detective Scalzo in his interview. Because at first he was trying to say, I threw the punch. Well, after talking, you realize, okay, we can't say that you threw it from, you can't protect your brothers. He's already showing that he's lying to protect his brother. But let me continue. All I remember is they were fighting, my friends and his friends. We all got together, we broke them up. We separated them. He came after Joey, we separated them again. He came after Joey again. We got my brother down to the patio outside area. I noticed my brother was bleeding from his nose, maybe his lip. Me and a couple of other people started to get my brother out, get him out of the situation. Go down to the other bar. Get out on the street. Just go home. We had a ride waiting for us. Question. Now this question is coming from the prosecutor. Before you move forward, we'll take it step by step. It sounds like there were 3 different altercations that took place inside the bar. Joey's brother says, inside the bar, yes. Prosecutor says, okay, then everything moved outside. Joey's brother says, uh-huh. Prosecutor asks, and you and your brother and some of your brother's friends moved outside. Joey's brother says, yes. Question. You said at the time your brother was bleeding from the nose. Answer. Nose, maybe lip. I'm not exactly sure. Question. Okay. Did you see any specific injuries on his face at the time? Answer. Other than the blood coming from his nose, no. Question. Okay. So what happened after you all moved outside? Answer. Well, we were on our way outside and I kept looking back to see if my friends were following us to leave. And I saw Anthony behind us. He came back looking. I saw him following us. I didn't really think much of it at the moment. I thought, okay, everyone's leaving, everyone's going home. I get out to the street. I don't know what happened. I don't know if I was just walking faster or if Joey heard something, turned around. He ended up behind me. I heard some commotion. I turned around. I see them on the ground. He's hitting my brother. That's what he says. So let's just pause there. And like I said, it's important. Why it's important? Because that one video showed that I was not following him outside. And the only explanation that you have for this is that Joey was it shows what I'm saying is true. Joey was obviously waiting for me to get outside. You must have been walking faster than him. You were behind him, pushing him out. So how you must have been walking faster than him? No. He was sitting there waiting for me. You continued to walk down the street. That's exactly what happened. Let's just call it what it is. I'm not going to read all the questions and answers from his testimony because I'm not just going to bore you guys with all of that. But I think you guys, I hope you guys are starting to see the narrative that they're trying to paint, and why these videos, both these videos were so important. And I keep harping on those, but they were just so important because it just dismantled everything that they were saying happened. Even him saying that I was on him punching him, like it just wasn't true. And he gets caught up in when my attorney cross-examines him. So now I'm gonna start reading. Now it's my attorney asking the questions, and this is still Joey's brother answering. So my attorney says, question, and I think your testimony then is that when you come out with your friends, you look over your shoulder and you see Anthony behind you. Answer, uh-huh. Question, okay, and how far behind is he behind you? Answer, a couple feet maybe. Question, and he was told to leave as well because everyone was told to leave, correct? Answer, yes. Question, okay, so when you get out onto the sidewalk area, I think your testimony was then that my client immediately comes up to your brother. Answer, no, that's not what I said. Question, what happens? Answer, we got out, he was behind us, me and my brother walked out about the same time. I don't know if I was walking faster or if my brother heard something, stopped, and turned around. I don't remember that. I just remember I was a little bit ahead of him, walking down the hill, and I heard a commotion, and I turned around and went back up. So this part of the cross-examination is where it gets important, because this is establishing that we're on the ground. You'll see what this established. Let me read it. So Nico's saying that when he saw the altercation, we were already on the ground. So it picks up right here. Question. So they were on the ground? Answer. That's what I saw. I saw they were already on the ground. I didn't see anything before that. Question. Fair enough. Do you see your brother? And you've never been to the Rialto, but there's cameras and videos everywhere. Did you see your brother on top of my client? Now, an important move by my attorney, because the cameras and videos everywhere, that makes him think I can't lie, because if I lie, there might be camera footage that can expose this lie. So here's his answer. Yes, at the time he was on top. Question. So your 5'11", 180-pound brother is on top of my 140-pound client. And what is your brother doing when he's on top of my client? Answer. He was just holding him. He wasn't throwing punches. He was holding him down. Question. Would it be fair to say that he was holding him by the neck area? Answer. More like a headlock, I would say. Question. A headlock? Answer. Head and neck area. Yes. So, do we see how this was starting to play out? And just a total disregard for the inconsistencies in their stories and the consistencies in mine. And it's important because where their stories are inconsistent, mine is. And they never even took the time to realize that. It's just sickening. Now, I want to fast forward and get to the part of the prelim where they put on Detective Scalzo. Now, Detective Scalzo was one of the detectives that were involved in my case, and Detective Scalzo would talk about the off-duty officer Dylan Nudie, and he would start to explain what Dylan Nudie's testimony was. And this is where that video comes into play that I'm going to show you guys. So first I'm going to read what was said in the prelim, then I'm going to go back. I'm going to read Dylan Nudie's statement to the police officers, and then I'm going to show you guys the video. So the questions asked, I know the prosecutor asked about if you had asked if someone was in custody or if they had someone in custody, and the answer was yes. But what else did Sergeant Fontana update you on? Sergeant Fontana was the officer that was on the scene, who I believe that's the officer who arrested me as well. And my attorney's asking what else did this officer update Detective Scalzawan. So he answers, he updated people on things like forensics were notified. So we had county R&I that was on their way. Mutual aid was on scene. I had asked where the victim was being transported, if he was still alive, and what the status looked like on that. I asked him if they interviewed any witnesses yet. He explained to me that there was one witness in particular. He was actually an off-duty state trooper that assisted in restraining Anthony during the stabbing. Question, was that Joe Williams he restrained or Anthony? He restrained Anthony. Now, what I'm going to do for you guys is I'm going to insert that video now. So, Officer Dylan Nudie is the individual wearing the green, and you can see me on my back on the ground. I'm wearing the yellow Kobe jersey. You can see Joey Williams on top of me around my head and neck area. And then you can see another individual trying to pull Joey off of me as well. So two grown men were trying to get him off me. And I want you guys to pay attention to a lady that comes in and kicks Joey. Now, this is important because she gives the statement at trial, and I'm going to save a lot of it, but I just have to say this now, that she comes over and kicks me. This is what she said on the stand at trial, that she came over, kicked me because I was on top of Joey and I was beating him, and that I was turning around trying to fight her fiance as well, because her and the off-duty state trooper are engaged. And she went up there and made the statement that I was trying to fight her fiance as well, so she had to come over and kick me. But just watch the video. Now, I'm sure you guys can see now why that video was so important. It just completely shattered their entire case. They relied so heavily on that off-duty state trooper, and he was just so wrong. And I can't wait to explain the way he was speaking about me at trial, because it will just further emphasize the narratives and the microaggressions and the blatant prejudice, racism, and bias that are just involved in my case. But for the time being, I want to fast forward to the end of my preliminary hearing. And at the end is where we're talking about bond. So to begin, my attorney is made a statement for bond. You know, he kind of explains that how I'm involved in the community, how my parents are involved in the community as well, how my, mom runs a store here in Greensburg, and, how the things I was involved in. He explained how I had a kid on the way. He's explained these different things, and this is what Katie Ranker, the ADA assigned to my case, had to say. She says, "Your Honor, I do believe that he would be," talking about me, "and can be a threat to the community, and more specifically, I feel that he would be a threat to Joseph Williams, who of course is the victim in this case. His testimony, Joey's, was not preserved today, and there would likely be interest by the defendant and his community to prevent the victim from testifying moving forward." Now, let's just dissect that, because I didn't even realize she said that part until I went back and read it, and it's infuriating. Like, what do you mean, my community? What does that mean? I mean, people talk about, I'm never that guy to, pull the race card, but this is a direct statement because I'm from this community. I'm not from anywhere else. I'm lived in Greensburg more than I lived in Jeanette, or equally. So I have friends in Greensburg. I was with people from Greensburg. That is just as much my community as anywhere else's. Like, what do you mean, members of my community? It doesn't make sense. Your Honor, I do believe that he would and can be a threat to the community. And more specifically, I feel that he would be a threat to Joseph Williams, who of course is the victim in this case. His testimony was not preserved today. There would likely be an interest by the defendant and his community to prevent the victim from testifying moving forward. Wow.
I told God this was my last time when I know it ain't my last time, but I'm praying for better days. These niggas sleep, I woke them up like it was nap time. Ongoing, got relaxed time, but I'm